The Woman King is directed by Gina Prince-Bythewood. She's responsible for the classic Love and Basketball and one of my personal underrated favorites, Beyond the Lights. Such an underrated movie. Gina is like one of those directors that hasn't done too much. I know she's actually done some shows, and I believe she did The Old Guard. I believe she directed that, which I quite liked actually. But since then, I have been patiently waiting for her next project. I mean, I did love The Old Guard, so I'm still waiting on that sequel. I think she's a very talented director, and anytime I see that she's behind the camera of something, I'm always eager to just wait to see what she's about to unfold with that next project. So when it was announced that she was going to be tackling The Woman King, well, two things. One, Gina is directing, so count me in. Two, she's taking on a story that's based around historical events, and in this case, the Dahomey tribe. So, yeah, I'm down for that. But then I saw the trailer. Mm. You know, okay, look, let's just get the bullshit out the way. Okay. The Woman King has been surrounded of late in recent controversies surrounding its take on historical accuracy. It's been hit with like a bunch of feedback, I would say, about how it's just trying to bait black people to buy tickets to see a movie that's pretty much celebrating, people who had slaves. We have Viola Davis actually admitting post this feedback that the movie is indeed fictional. And I specifically remember IMDb changing its synopsis around to try to push it into a more favorable and ambiguous light. The trailers had based on a powerful true story and posters going back and forth with which words to use to sort of describe the movie, whether it's based on true events or whether it's inspired by true events. Now this isn't a new thing. I mean, most films that are tied around historical settings, they tend to use this to help push credibility and authenticity of the film. However, in this particular case, if you ask me, the film sort of toed the line a bit too much. The kingdom of Dahomey was heavily involved in the slave trade. They contributed in capturing men, women, and children for goods like agricultural crops, tobacco, weapons, all the things that at the time people needed. And when those said slaves were not sold to the Europeans, they were set to be slaves for the kingdom, for the king. You know what I'm saying? They worked in the fields and the farms for the king against their will. And when not working in the fields, they were trained to be bodyguards for the king. But they were still slaves. It wasn't until pressure from the British Empire and having a war with the French and losing to the French where their slave trading activities actually went to the wayside. But mind you, had it been up to King Gezo, he'd still have his slaves. Like, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He wanted his slaves. But look, you don't have to take my word for it. Okay, guys? Like, all you got to do is just take this device right here, look up the French Dahomean War. There were two of them. Okay? Or better yet, go to a freaking library. Now, I explain all that because in this movie, remember when I said that in this film, they pretty much toe the line when it comes to historical accuracy? What I mean by that is they take that line and they pretty much throw it in the trash. This movie is bullshit. It's not accurate. And it actually blatantly lies to you about who these people were. And I hate to say this, okay, but it feels like, to me, it feels like it's an insidious attempt to bank on unassuming black audiences to chug down the Kool-Aid and praise this film as if it's like another Black Panther, where actual informed people like me have to watch this film and be that one asshole that goes, give me a freaking break. And look, I'm sorry if I can't make it to your next cookout because my black card is under suspension for this review, but hey, I gotta be honest. Now, let me be fair and give the film some credit, okay? the movie does open up with the title scroll that acknowledges that they contribute to slavery. And they do mention this civil war that's kind of brewing between the Oyo tribe and them. And as we're introduced to the Agoji, which is the women's army, we see Viola Davis' character Naniska, which is portrayed beautifully, by the way. And she's leading her army of warriors, and a battle sequence commences. Not gonna lie, that action was badass. The choreography was fantastic. The women looked fantastic. It gives me feels of how the women in the Black Panther movies, the Wakanda warriors, it kind of feels like that in a sense. You got all these women kind of kicking ass, and it's dope. And the reason for this battle is because the Goje, they're there to rescue their people that were supposedly kidnapped by the Oyo tribe. So they're pretty much there to like on a rescue mission to get their people back. That's sort of how the film is setting itself up right now, just to kind of show you that there's a rivalry happening between these two tribes. Okay. Now, after we get awesome shots of Africa, and yes, the cinematography is excellent. I love seeing landscapes of Africa and watching the sunrise in its very Lion King way. But here's when the bullshit comes in. The film showcases the kingdom of Dahomey is pretty much another Wakanda. Everyone is happy and living their lives. You have women that are hunting and gathering, and you got all these children running around, but we're the slaves. Like, where are they? Like, you get shot after shot after shot of just people having a good time in this kingdom. And like I said, I'm sure that happened, but there's like nobody in captivity. There's like no servants, no slaves, no nothing. It's like people, it's just the Commonwealth people just kind of doing their own thing. It's like the movie wants to tell you that everyone there was happy and free to work and serve the king. And look, no doubt that some people there were happy, okay? But not Wakanda happy, okay? Like, what is this? And when the Dahomey tribe comes in and marches through, all of the Commonwealth people, they line up and they greet them with these very admiring eyes as if they're like the heroes of the country or something. Now, the main girl that this movie follows, I think her name is Nawi, I think. She's supposed to be the one that looks up to them and really admires them. Like, she really is envious of their position and wants to essentially be like them. And you can kind of see it in her face, like, I want to be like you when I grow up. Oh, child. And that's the movie's way of trying to tell you that these people are meant to be honored and celebrated. It's pure manipulation. Now, Nawi is a girl that's supposedly promised to be wed a rich, wealthy guy or something. And we have this scene where the man that she's supposed to be marrying is like qualifying her to kind of see if she's wife material. Turns out that she's not wife material and disappoints her father. And then the father kind of takes her to the king and says, you can have her. Take her off my hands because she's, bewitched, or she's the devil. She's not my daughter. All that kind of stuff, right? And here comes more bullshit. For one, I just want to say I have no doubt that there were some people in Africa where they were promised to marry somebody, and the lady just wasn't digging it. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that there was some unhappiness there. But the movie sort of paints marriage and, arranged marriage rather, in a very pessimistic light. I'm not gonna get too far into that, but it was just the fact. I mean, I get it because it's the way to try to move the plot forward. But like I said, here's where the bullshit comes in. Okay, you ready? They go to this gate, and this gate is pretty much sectioned off from the Commonwealth people, and that's where the king lives and where all the Agoji armies go to and all that kind of stuff, right? And so when the father gets there, she's greeted by the Agoji. I forget her name, but one of the soldiers there. And so when he says, "Take my daughter, I don't want her anymore. She's the devil," or whatever, she says, "Come." She comes. Cool. She goes into the gate, and now he starts to just get introduced to this section of the city like it's its own female utopia or something, right? You got ladies dancing around, playing games and laughing, having fun, and then you have over here female training to be soldiers, like they're, huh, huh. It's kind of like if you go to any kind of boot camp and you see people training, it's something like that, but it's all females. And it's like I said, it's like a female utopia. And so you have Naui, you see looks on her face like, oh my God, there's no men. This is where I belong. Oh my God. It's kind of like an eye roller. Like, oh, I see what you guys are doing. You're trying to make it seem like this is where it's supposed to be, right? And all I can do is just pretty much cringe at it because, like, again, it's the movie's way of trying to tell you, especially if you're uninformed, that this is like paradise and it's like its own Themyscira or something, right? Like, in Wonder Woman where you have Diana kind of like seeing people train and all the women training and she's like, I want to be like them, right? That's fine. It's a work of fiction. We get it. Like, they're all gods and stuff. So that's cool. Here, though, it wasn't the case. Okay? These are all fucking slaves. So, nobody wants to be there. Nobody wanted to be a Dahomey bodyguard. Nobody wanted to do that kind of stuff. This was all forced upon them. And they're pretty much showcasing it off like this is something to fantasize about. Then we get this extremely awkward speech from Naniska, played by Viola Davis, and she's like pretty much gathering the women around. They're all lined up, right? And she says to the women, "We don't get married here. Okay, cool. No men will ever force you to be their possessions or something like that." And she says, "You can have your own opinions." She actually says this. And it's just the worst kind of dialogue, for this. It's just like, you can have your own opinions. Like, okay, all right, and that's not even the worst part. Okay, she says to them, you can leave whenever you want. But I kid you not. It's like the movie, like I said, it's just blatant lies after lies after lies. Like, they're trying to put this impression upon you that the Dahomey tribe or the Agoji warriors were like some hidden treasure in our African history that, we just missed or something. And now that we have it here, they're to be praised for being so strong and so capable. And when you have this kind of cringe dialogue here, and it's not cringe throughout, it's just this one moment where I just started laughing. We have cringe dialogue like this, where they're saying, you can have your own opinions, and you can leave whenever you want. It's like, no, chick, you can't. Okay, let me continue. But this is the problem that I had. Okay, this is like the line that they told. Like, these people, these women, they didn't get married because they weren't allowed to. Like, the king ordered these women not to be married. He didn't want anybody there to either having sex or being married. That was his mission. The Agoji are not supposed to be out here being in relations with anybody, right? So it's not like, that was a choice. And yet this film is taking extreme liberties to say that this film or these women had their own agency. No, boo-boo. Mm-mm. They were slaves to the king. And even they had slaves. Like, you had slaves that had slaves that had slaves. You get what I'm saying? Because we're talking about a kingdom, okay? We're talking about royalty. So this is a very high-class situation where even back then, the highest class of people had slaves, including the king. So when you represent the king, mind you, just against your own will, but when you represent the king, you are going to be served by his slave. And to my knowledge, they had around 15 to 20 slaves per soldier. Right? Like, make it make sense. Oh, I forgot. It's a movie. It's not supposed to make sense. Jesus Christ. The biggest misrepresented story beat in this film is that they were trying to, or the movie's trying to say that the Kingdom of Dahomey were trying to get out of the slave trade. Like they were trying to stop slaving. Okay. And you have these scenes here where the King Ezo, is being persuaded by Naniska, who is the Agoji army general. She's trying to persuade the king to quit the slave trade and get into palm oil trading, which didn't happen. Okay, well, let me clarify. They did actually trade in palm oil, but they didn't have conversations about not trading slaves. That didn't happen. The Dahomey wanted to keep slaving. Okay, it was their biggest revenue stream. It was actually the evil white devils that were trying to put pressure on them to stop slave trading, right? But the movie wants to keep this narrative that it's the white people that brought this evil and corruption to their land. Like there's actually a line in there where Naniska tells the king it was the evil white man that brought this evil and corruption to our lands. And it's like, no, bitch, you always had this evil and corruption in your land. All right, I need some water. Okay, let me try to bring some balance to this review. Okay, underneath all of this debauchery and all of this BS, okay, there is an actual good story here. All right, when it comes to dealing with the fictional actual parts of the film, there are some pretty exceptional things here. There's this little romance between Nawi and this vanilla wafer looking dude, right? And it's quite charming. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Gina Prince, I think she does well with romance. When it comes to building chemistry with characters, when it comes to love narratives and things like that. Like she did with Love and Basketball, Beyond the Lights. Like I think she's good with that kind of stuff. So having Nawi and this guy kind of have some sort of fleeing a little bit, it worked for me. So it was dope. There's an interesting twist that involves Naniska that I actually really didn't see coming, and it did, for me, it did give more weight for her character. And so, once that happens, I got a little bit more invested into the story. Like there were layers. I could say that there were layers for these characters, and because she's a fictional character and all that, I can forgive some of these things. I didn't mind it as much. The acting is top notch as well. Like I said, I loved Viola Davis in this. The girl who plays Nawi, I don't know her name, but she does a good job as well. Even though I did find her character a bit insufferable at times, that starts to change when, like I said, that twist kind of happens in the story, in the character structure, right? So, you'll see. I don't want to spoil it because it's actually a pretty cool twist. So you'll see if you go see it. Lashana Lynch is charming in here as well. And her chemistry between her character and Nawi is actually pretty cool. Like they have this kind of big sister, little sister kind of vibe, and you see that dynamic kind of grow as the movie goes on. And I mean, look, I enjoyed that. I can say that, like, I enjoyed that part of the movie. It does make for those really good character moments to really shine and work for me. The action is awesome. Like I said before, I have no complaints at all about the battle scenes. Like, very well shot. Very well shot indeed. One thing that I can say as well is that the film, it takes a while to get to the action. Like, a lot of these action sequences, they kind of fall off from each other. So, there's going to be a lot of slow moments. I'm going to call it slow moments, but, the film tries to focus a lot on the character development side of things, and because they do such a good job with that, I found myself invested in caring about these characters and wondering where the story is going to go. Right, so I didn't really mind the story not having a lot of action in it, even though it's supposed to be this action epic movie, because I was so into the characters and just wanting to know what was going to happen with them. I was intrigued. So, them not having so much action in it, it didn't really bother me all that much. And because I care about these characters, it makes for powerful moments in the movie when the climax and things start to get very dramatic. So, bullshit aside, well written characters and great story moments and great action. So I did have some fun with it. Okay, I did have some fun with it. Now, that all being said, do I recommend this movie? Yes and no. And here's why. The film takes extreme liberties in its historical accuracy. And, to me, that's a little bit dangerous. It's rewriting history about a time in reality that goes against the popular narrative that, the white Europeans and America as a country invented slavery, or they sought out to get slavery exclusively for African people. The thing is, though, is that that's not the whole truth. It's not something where that was a thing and that's just a point blank period. There were a lot of layers to slavery. That there were slaves that were enslaved in Africa by Africans as well. And what I can't get behind is that you have this movie that actively does its best to sustain this narrative with these historical events, and that's just troublesome to me. Like, if you want to tell something that's historically accurate in any kind of sense, just tell the whole truth and let all the ugly just play out. But you're trying to paint a narrative that's a bit misrepresented, especially when this movie literally celebrates these warriors as being somebody to, some like people to be admired or people to be honored. Hell no! Like, these folks were responsible for 20% of the entire slave trade, guys. Like, just think about that for a second. But they're sacrificing accuracy for entertaining folks with women's empowerment themes and pro black paradise story beats, and it's just cringe to me. It's just, I can't get behind stuff like that because it's just not true. Now, like, people can do what they want to do, okay? Like, that's fine. But if you think bragging about Black Women's Army and having your kids, praise the Dahomey tribe and impersonate these African dances that they're doing and all that kind of stuff, if you think all that shit is fun, okay, cool. Just, if you want to stay in your ignorance, that's fine. But as for me, I'm feeling a 6 out of 10. I mean, like I said, it's just another missed opportunity to tell something, great without putting all this BS in there. Oh, by the way, before I finish off, the ending in this movie, like when I tell you, I was already, like, my expectations were already here, like, low, okay? And like I said, there's some good things in here, but then when the ending happens, it's like I was on a ride, and then the ending happens, and I go, really? Right? I mean, look, if you just take the title alone, like, they call it The Women King, that already in itself is like a cringe title in the first place. Worst title ever. Okay? But the way that shows up in the film near the ending, it's like, bro, no. Like, no. And look, there's some fun stuff in there. Like I said, there's some heart in some of these scenes. I just can't get behind the lack of narrative integrity. I just can't. So, but what do you guys think? Are you guys gonna go out and see the movie? Do you think I'm all just full of shit? I mean, you can go out there and see it for yourself. I mean, if you don't like, researching history like I do, that's fine. But, tell me what you guys think about it in the comments. Do you think I'm off in any kind of area? Let me know down in the comment section below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Okay? Peace.